Steve Patrick with LP Loss Consulting, and we're going to discuss insurance appraisal today. So what is insurance appraisal? Insurance appraisal is an alternative dispute resolution. Let's say that you have an insurance claim, especially like a storm claim, and your insurance company isn't treating you right. Their damage assessment is incomplete. They're omitting valid damage, legitimate damage. Perhaps their method of repair is inadequate, or maybe they're lowballing your claim. And so if you find yourself in any one of those three situations, or all three, basically you have four options available to you. Option number one, take it on the chin. This is what the vast majority of people do, take it on the chin, not because they want to, but because they don't really know that there's any other alternative. Of course, you can hire an attorney. Attorneys are expensive, and it could take 6 to 12 months, maybe even longer, to bring your claim to resolution. You can hire a public adjuster, or you can take your claim to appraisal. There are four benefits that appraisal has to it that the other three alternatives do not have. Number one, circumvention. So if you've been working with your insurance adjuster, perhaps it feels like that you're beating your head against a brick wall. And in this case, if you're dealing with an unreasonable and uncooperative claims adjuster, then, man, it can get rough. So the number one reason why appraisal works so well is circumvention. In appraisal, you completely circumvent the brick wall. You circumvent the claims department. Once they name their appraiser, they have zero input into the process. This is significant. The second reason why appraisal works so well, and it's better than the other three alternatives, is independence. Both of the appraisers on the appraiser panel must be independent. What this means is the insurance company cannot tell their appraiser what to think, say, or do. They must be unbiased and bring their expertise to bear on the claim and bring their expertise to the appraisal process to include every bit of legitimate damage, to determine a reasonable method of repair, and to price the repair using reasonable market rates. So how does appraisal work? Before you go to appraisal, the consumer simply must send in a reinspection request to the carrier. You typically do this when you make a supplemental claim. If the carrier sends out the same adjuster to reinspect the property, then you're probably not going to get anywhere. So when you send in your reinspection request, make sure that you ask for a different adjuster. This isn't going to make the first adjuster your friend, but you're not here to make a friend. You're here to get a fair settlement on your claim. If the carrier refuses a reinspection, then your loss is what's termed ripe for appraisal, which means now you can go to appraisal. So the first step is that you hire an appraiser. Now, the most important thing when hiring an appraiser is make sure that they are competent and experienced. This is not the time to hire a bargain basement appraiser who's going to work on the cheap, because you're going to be stuck with the results. So you better hire a competent one. The next step is to invoke the appraisal process. Inside your property policy, it states that either party may demand appraisal. So if you'd like to demand appraisal, we'll be happy to email you a sample demand letter that you can send into your insurance company. They have 20 days to respond and name an appraiser and to give us the appraiser's contact information so that we can begin the process. When you mail your demand letter, make sure that you mail it certified mail, return receipt requested. You'll get one of these green cards. Make sure that you actually fill out a physical green card. Now, on the instruction sheet that we give you on how appraisal works, we give you detailed instructions on how to send your demand letter. Once again, once the carrier has signed the green card, they have 20 days to name an appraiser and give us their contact information so we can begin the process. So the first 3 weeks, we're sitting on our hands waiting for them to name an appraiser. The very first thing the appraisal panel does is name an umpire. An umpire is a third-party, objective person who's like a tiebreaker. It's very important that your appraiser be experienced so that they will name a competent and unbiased umpire. Because let's face it, if the damage on your property is legitimate and your contractor's estimate is reasonable, then the evidence stands on its own, and an unbiased umpire will see that. Once any 2 out of the 3 on the appraisal panel come to an agreement on the amount of loss, that sets the amount of loss, and the award is binding on both parties. So how much does the appraisal process cost? We charge $175 an hour, time and expense, reasonable expenses only. Let's say that you have a typical wind or hail loss. If the other appraiser is reasonable, then typically we'll conclude the process within about a month, and it'll cost you somewhere between $500 and $1,000. That's what you can reasonably expect. If the other appraiser is not reasonable, and it takes more hours because we have to invoke the umpire, then you can expect probably $1,000 to $1,500 because it takes more time when we have to involve the umpire. Obviously, more complex residential losses and commercial losses, they take more time and they will cost more money. So how long can you reasonably expect the process to take? Anywhere between 1 to 3 months. If you have a claim that's particularly complex or a large commercial loss, you can expect it to take longer. What kind of results can you reasonably expect? Provided that your damage is in fact legitimate and your contractor or PA's estimate is reasonable, then you can expect very good results. We've been doing this, Tony's been doing this for 30 years and I've been doing it for 17 years, so we have 47 years of combined experience performing appraisals on losses just like yours. So how do you get the process started? If the carrier has paid you for anything, even 1 foot of guttering or $1 to replace a single shingle, then that means that they've extended coverage for the loss and they've accepted liability to pay for your loss. Now you can go to appraisal, whether the dispute is over the damage assessment, the method of repair, or pricing. So you invoke the appraisal process with a demand letter, and you send it certified mail return receipt, and within 20 days they name an appraiser and we begin the process. The first thing we do is we name an umpire. That's the third-party tiebreaker. And the next thing we do is we schedule an appointment to meet at the loss location to take a look at the damage, to perform a damage assessment, and determine an appropriate method of repair. Then the 2 appraisers go back to their own offices and create an estimate of repairs. This is called their appraisal. And if the 2 appraisers can agree on an amount, then they sign an award. The award is issued and it's binding on both parties. If they can't come to an agreement, they involve the umpire. And then the umpire will then determine what remains in dispute and help resolve the remaining dispute between the 2 appraisers. Once any 2 out of the 3 on the appraisal panel agree, that sets the amount of the loss, and that loss is now binding on both parties. The award is issued, and payment is usually issued within 30 days. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. And if you need an experienced, competent appraiser to handle your appraisal, then consider hiring LP Loss Consultants. Thank you for your time.